Since its inception in 1981, the Lambert House Youth Center has been building its current collection to house one of the largest dedicated LGBTQ+ libraries in the United States, housing approximately 4,000 books in addition to programming, games, wellness resources, art supplies, snacks, and other vital services for young queer and trans folks between the ages of 10 and 22 in Seattle. Prior to and during the pandemic, Lambert House began renovating its library system and services, establishing for the first time a formal organization system with the assistance of volunteers and Capstone and DFW student workers. When I came into this project, I struggled to find my footing with conflicting information and procedures from a number of former librarians. While some recent work passed on clear written protocol, in it I found flaws in classification practices that, if they were to become well established, would fail to serve the most marginalized of youth, those with intersectional identities and who fall outside of binary categories of gender and sexual orientation. As a solo capstone project, I focused my goals on the organization's desire to 1. Get the library up and running for youth visitors. 2. Move towards a browsable, reservable, digital catalog. I used a design approach to iteratively improve the space and services instead of attempting to catalog the entire unfinished collection. I started by familiarizing with the current inventory on the shelves and catalog systems of LibraryThing and the associated Tiny Cat through auditing materials on the shelf flagged for attention. I pulled miscategorized books, corrected incomplete or incorrect records, and added those which were not yet in the system. At the same time, I weeded books that were clearly of low or outdated quality and made notes of development recommendations to flesh out the limited range of some subjects. Gradually, I moved on to process fresh donations, uncatalogued books in storage, and worked to organize and clearly label the library's dedicated storage closet. Issues included the reduction of the majority of fiction into 2 large binary sections, gay, male, and lesbian, while segmenting historically underexplored identities such as transgender and bisexual into shelf sections which contained both fiction and nonfiction works. I also noted an inherited grouping of international, nonfiction, and fiction by non-white, non-European authors, with QTPOC as a single subject. These acronyms are contested descriptors for their collapse of all identities outside of European and white into a single block, and felt especially incorrect when conflating diasporic and migrant world groups with Indigenous Americans, African Americans, and other distinctly U.S. identities. With these considerations, I made recommendations to split fiction and nonfiction, categorizing by genre instead of identity, and in the future increasing searchability by tagging these specific identities while leaving opportunity for discovering on the shelves. I drafted standardized, accessible documentation for the next worker to orient themselves, taking into consideration the diversity of identities and how to best honor their differences and similarities. I plan to continue volunteering with Lambert House to ensure staff have the knowledge they need to use the digital catalog with youth and to keep building the connection. When developing classifications for LGBTQIA+ materials that serve the community adequately, it's vital to consider shifts across cultures and times. A combination of highlighting connections through genre, meticulous precision around identity, and acknowledging historicism have to be balanced with practical needs for usability. Questions will arise like how to shelve writers who are retroactively deemed queer, or who bring together casts of lesbians, gay men, and others in coalition. Is it transphobic for a male-assigned feminine figure in a Chilean work to use masculine pronouns and call himself a crossdresser? Where does a work written by a lesbian about hospice care for gay men dying of AIDS go? Do closeted youth at risk of being cut off from family funds prefer an academic treatise on the homosexual lifestyle or a book of cheap and easy meal recipes? 10 to 22 is a messy time to be a human where individuals develop physically and emotionally at different rates within a diversity of experience that defies linear progression. When a young person is unable to see themselves within the dominant society's defined acceptable categories, it's the responsibility of adults to create and safeguard opportunities for discovery and experimentation, as the youth craft an identity that will, in some form, be with them for life.